Hello and welcome back. The law of gravitation, which you know, is applicable at a time to pair of particles. If you have two particles, you can easily find how much is force on any one of them. And that force, of course, obeys Newton's third law. What happens if you have multiple particles or you have group of particles? Suppose we have multiple particles and you are supposed to find how much is net gravitational force on this one. To solve this type of problem, we use a very useful principle, very powerful also, known as principle of superposition. Principle of superposition is one of the most powerful tools available to physics student to solve problem. Now, it simply states that net effect is sum of individual effects. Net effect is sum of individual effects. Now, what I mean by this? To illustrate this, let me consider one example. Draw this diagram. Suppose three particles of mass m1, m2 and m3 is placed at vertex of an equilateral triangle. So you have three particles at vertex. Side of triangle is A. We have to find how much is net gravitational force on M2. Net force on M2. Now, what you know regarding gravitational force is, if you are dealing with two particles, you can easily apply it. So, let us first consider force between M1 and M2. Now, if I ask you in what direction force between M1 and M2 will act, you will say along line joining 2 and attractive. So this is force on 2 because of 1, isn't it? And who else can exert force on M2? M3. Now, in what direction force between M2 and M3 will act? Along line joining these two. Along line joining these two and attractive. So, this is force on 2 because of 3 or not? So, how much is net force on 2? Net force on 2 will say is equal to F21 plus F23. This is what is known as principle of superposition. This is your principle of superposition. What is meaning of this? Principle of superposition means net effect is sum of individual effects. So this F21 is force between 2 and 1 or not? That is what is meant by individual effects. Effect of 1 on 2, and F23 is what? Force on 2 because of 3. So that is effect or force on 2 because of 3. Again individual effect. And when you add these two, what you get? Net effect. So that is principle of superposition. So if I ask you how much will be net force on 1, what will you write? Net force on 1 will be force on 1 because of 2 plus force on 1 because of 3 individual effects. But of course, this sum is vector sum. You are supposed to take vector sum because force is a vector. Similarly, what about net force on third particle? Force on third particle due to 2 plus force on third particle due to 1. In this manner, one can find out net force. But the important idea is, when you are finding force between 1 and 2, when you find force between 1 and 2, what you will imagine? This third particle is not present. It is not affecting that magnitude and direction of force in any way. That is, the main concept behind principle of superposition. I will repeat it again. What is meaning of this term? Force between 2 and 1. Now when you are calculating force between 2 and 1, forget about any other particle present. So if you forget about this second particle, or this M3, then you are dealing with how many particles? 2. You know how to apply law of gravitation if you have 2 particles. What is F23? Force between 2 and 3, forget about 1. Then you can easily find force between 2 and 3. Even if you have large number of particles, suppose, draw another diagram. You have a square of side A, M1, M2, M3, M4. Net force on 1. Net force on 1. Who will exert force on 1? 2, 3 and 4. Let us draw free body diagram. Force because of 2. When you are finding force because of 2, you will take into account, or you will think about M3, M4 also, or only M2? Only M2. So we can say when we are finding force on M1 because of M2, in absence of all other particles. In absence of all other particles. So how much is that force? Line joining 2 and attractive. So this is force on 1 because of 2 or not. Then force between 1 and 3 in absence of all other. So you will focus only on 1 and 3. Line joining 2, attractive. Force on 1 because of 3. 1 and 4, line joining 2. Force on 1 because of 4. So net force will be vector sum of individual forces F12 plus F13 plus F14. What is F12? Force between particle 1 and particle 2 in absence of all other particles. We can conceptually add this part. What is F13? Force between 1 and 3 in absence of all other, 1, 4 and so on. So if you have n number of particles, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is ith particle, total number of particle is n. How you will write that general expression? Force on ith particle. Net force on ith particle will be how much? Force on ith particle due to first particle plus force on ith particle due to second particle, force on ith particle due to nth particle. So it is simply summation f I j or not, where index is j, I will not vary, mind you, j, so fi is equal to j equal to 1 to n, and j is not equal to I. J cannot be equal to I. So this is what is known as principle of superposition, and with help of principle of superposition you can solve large number of problems. So next let us discuss few problems based on concept of principle of superposition.